Hi, this is Marnie from Derm Health Co. And today I'm speaking with Tony Vanderneet of Zebra Lymphatics. Tony is located in Yamundi, North Queensland, a beautiful part of the world. And Tony has spent the last several years working on the lymphatic system. He is a passionate advocate for lymphatic health. He works with people from all walks of life to ensure that their lymphatic system is operating and healthy as possible. And today he is going to share the intricacies of the lymphatic system. He's also going to go through some easy steps that you can do at home to ensure that your lymphatic system is working as optimally as possible. Tony, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, lovely to be here, Manina. Thanks for the invite. Okay, so how does the lymphatic system work? Well, basically, the lymphatic system is responsible for most of our defense in our body, but also for waste removal. And many people seem to be under the impression that the blood system is what does that, but the lymphatic system takes away all of the large particles. And I'll explain that a little bit further. But on my illustration just behind me, I just wanted to talk about a few things. For example, in the body, we've got lymph pipes and also lymph nodes. So as you can see in the diagram here, the body's covered with lymph pipes, and they are actually what pumps fluid throughout the body. They extend from the toe, and all of the lymph pipes terminate in the neck up here, in this intersection here and here. It's called the terminus. So in simple terms, what happens is as our body has a dead cell in its toe or in one of the organs, that gets sucked through these pipes and pumped to the neck, where it's finally deposited into the bloodstream in this area here, and then it's on the M1 out of the body through the liver and the kidneys. So how many nodes do we have in the body? Well, we have about 600 or 700 nodes in the body. What do they do? Well, the nodes are basically, in my viewpoint, like little kidneys. If you were to cut them open, you would find that they're very, very fine filtering stations. So they filter as dead cells, viruses and bacteria are taken through the lymph, and they go through a series of nodes. They're filtered and checked. Defense is applied to whatever is found in the node, and then it gets pumped toward the neck, and as it goes through another node, it's repeated. So as fluid leaves our tissue and goes up through our lymphatic system, it's cleaned and processed and defended until finally it ends up in the terminus here, so that when it's dumped into the bloodstream, it should be fairly clean by that stage, when the rest of our body's got to deal with it at that stage. If we were to look at lymph, if you just say you have a blister on your toe and you pop it, you find that the blister is made of clear fluid. That's actually the same fluid that we term as lymph in the human body. The difference is that it hasn't entered the lymphatic system yet. As that blister, or the fluid in the blister, gets pumped and filtered and pumped and filtered as it goes up the body, it becomes more yellow and thicker as it's processed and cleansed on the way up. It's condensed, almost like cordial. It's reduced down to a very clean matter at that stage. Okay, so that gives us a little bit of an idea about the lymphatic system. While we're on this diagram, can you see, Manina, these areas here which are dotted on the diagram?
Yes.
Okay, so just a brief explanation of those is there's different parts in the body where fluid drains in certain directions superficially, so just under our skin. So we find that in this area here, just above this, your belly button, all of the lymph drains back to our groin. In our legs, it drains up toward the groin. If someone is trying to drain their lymph in the chest area, it drains toward these auxiliary nodes up here. So the important point to remember here is not so much which way it drains, is just to know that certain quadrants and segments in the body drain in certain directions. So the principle about dry brush massaging from your toe to your heart is generally fairly incorrect. Okay, so that gives us an idea about the general lymphatic system. One other thing is that with our lymphatic system, we've got two segments to the lymphatic system. We have superficial lymph, where everywhere where we can touch on our body, there are superficial lymph collectors. And then deep in our body around all our organs, we have a lot of lymph that deals with the deep stuff around our organs, around our bones, our heart, our lungs, etc. Okay, I'll flip this one over. So here's a bit of a closer look at the superficial lymph. Now this segment here that you can see up here is approximately a cubic centimetre of skin. We can see the hairs up here, and down below we can see all of these little fingers here, and they're called lymph collectors. Each lymph collector has a blood supply, which is the red and the blue, and of course the green represents lymph. And here's one of those lymph collectors there. Now you can imagine that if we move the skin at the top superficially, we drag on some of these collagen fibers, which opens some of these doors, and have a guess what happens when you've got waste material superficially here and an empty pipe here. All of the big material gets sucked into the pipe. One other really important factor to remember too is that regarding lymphatics, because of these doors on these lymph collectors, we're able to rid the body of all of the large particles, viruses, bacteria, all of the big stuff that is too big to be pushed through a blood capillary. So we get an idea about that. They're all over the body. Under my thumb as an example, there's possibly 35 to 50 of these little fingers or lymph collectors pointing toward the skin. Under my hand, maybe 200 to 300. So if we twist the skin, what we're doing is pulling on 200 to 300 of these pipes and some of the doors on each. And that's the most effective way to get interstitial fluid, or the fluid in under the skin, into the pipes. The natural way it happens is through skeletal muscle moving against that tissue. That gentle movement of my bicep against the skin is actually opening and closing lymph collectors in this area here. So the best way to clean your body superficially is to do lots of exercises with all the muscles, but there are other ways too. I'll leave that one up there just for you to digest a little bit more about the lymphatics. Now, how do we stimulate the lymphatic system in itself? Well, we've learnt that skeletal muscle moving against the skin is something that will drag and pull on those doors and open those pipes. There are three major ways to stimulate lymphatic function. Skeletal muscle movement's the first one. The second one is temperature change. And the third one is pressure. Now, when I talk about temperature change, one of the best ways to excite the lymph vessels is to go from ambient temperature, not necessarily hot temperature, and jump in really cold water or cooler water. The colder, the better. So the only thing that I can think of that stimulates all three areas is aqua aerobics in cold water. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen, Menina, people, Olympic swimmers as an example, with high-speed photography. You'll notice when they're swimming, all of their skin is moving and tugging all over their whole body. So if a patient that was toxic was able to get in water and just move, that would actually stimulate the movement and the cleansing of all of their tissue. Okay, so that gives us a little bit of an idea there. The other way we can do it is we can actually manually stimulate the lymphatics. I'm going to try and get this on camera a little bit, but if you were to touch, this area is the drain in the body. So what we want to do, if we're ever plumbing, we don't want to go down the pipe in the street and unblock it there. We want to start at the blockage in the toilet as an example. And because of all our lymph, because all our lymph is draining at our neck into big blood pipes, what we want to do is you want to stimulate this area first. So a really great exercise for people that they can do at home themselves is to touch their skin just lightly enough to get contact, drag the skin back until it won't go any further, a little twist and a release. So in real time, it's touch, drag, twist, release. Touch, drag, twist, release. Touch, drag, twist, release. Now you can do it that way. And it's a bit hard to see, but you might be able to see a line formed here. I don't know if that's showing up. But as I touch both sides of my neck and pull my skin back, it tightens right across here. So I've probably got about 600 or 700 of these lymph collectors here that are opening and closing. Now, the lymph in general can be quite a lazy system. And if we stimulate it through jumping in cold water, through running or exercise, or through this, which is called manual lymphatic drainage, what we do is we can get it moving from, say, 6 to 10 beats a minute up to 25 or 35 beats a minute. So all the functions that the lymphatic system does, it will do at a greater rate. And those functions are defending our body, emptying the waste, and moving some fats in the body. Now, the reason why the lymphatic system is so important is the human body is about 70% fluid. Now, the issue here is that most of our defense happens through these fluid channels through our lymphatic system. We're all possibly aware that sometimes if people get a lymphatic cancer, that it could possibly spread through the lymphatic system. So we can use that information to our advantage too, by trying medications that move through the lymph to target diseases better. But that's why the lymphatic system is so important, because of these security stations that we store all through the body, where viruses, bacteria, infection are targeted before it gets into the bloodstream, but also because much of our defense, our T cells, B cells and macrophages go through the lymphatic system. So some of the key things are, it's a very general statement, but in general, my experience has been people that move seem to maintain their health in general better than people that are static, sitting in a chair all day, etc. So if we want to maintain our lymphatic health, obviously our diet and our mindset are very important, but we want to keep moving at all times. If we were to do that exercise just on the neck 1 to 3 times a day for 1 to 3 minutes, that will have a systemic effect on the whole body. And what I mean by that is that as these lymph pipes empty into the bloodstream, then further through the body, they empty into those empty spaces and so on, until after a short period of time, the extremities of our body have emptied into our neck, and then our blood system will dump clean fluid back into the tissue, and guess what? We're healthier. The chemical balance has been restored, and it's a huge part of maintaining the body's health. What else? Have you got any other questions for me, Manina?
Tony, I'd like to ask, how do we know we're doing it right?
Okay, good question. All right, Manina, have you ever had a good massage? A good, firm, deep tissue massage?
Yep.
Okay. If some of our listeners were to be outside the room while you're having a good, deep tissue massage, and then they walked in afterward and looked at your back where you've been massaged for 15, 20 minutes, how could they tell by looking at your back that you'd had the massage?
It'd probably be quite red.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully, if the therapist has stretched those bundled fibres in your muscles and straightened them out again with some very firm pressure, what they've also done is the vascular system is now releasing fluid and nutrients into the tissue, but it's also generated waste too. That's not the sort of massage that you want to stimulate lymph, because the lymph system is made up of very fine lymph capillaries, which are probably 0.2 to 0.8 of a mil thick. If we apply too much pressure, we will release nutrients and tissue into the nutrients and fluid into the tissue, and we know we're stimulating the vascular system rather than the lymphatic system. So the short guide is try to only move the skin. If the tissue starts to become red, you're doing it too firmly. But anything short of that, you can imagine that pressure of my muscle moving against my skin, I can barely discern it's happening. So any pressure from that, short of stimulating the release of fluid into the tissue, is appropriate for lymphatic drainage. And just one thing you've reminded me of too. One of the best exercises we can do is either jump in a pool and bounce in a pool, or even on a rebounder, because you can imagine what happens in slow motion on a rebounder is all our organs are sloshing up and sloshing down, and they're stretching and moving the lymphatics, and of course now they're excited to work more. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. And I'm also wondering about body brushing. You mentioned that we've probably been doing it wrong. Is body brushing an effective way to get our lymphatics moving? Because it's often prescribed, it's often talked about on social media.
Exactly. In my personal opinion, I hear of many cases where breast care nurses are still recommending to patients to brush toward the heart. You've seen this picture and the other illustration which showed the pipe and the collagen fibres coming off the pipe. So I'll allow you to answer it for yourself. If we do that, will that be opening many of those doors on those lymph pipes, or would a twisting motion be actually more effective? We have to remember that with fluid, if I clasp my arm like this and pushed firmly toward my elbow, which part of my arm, the elbow side or the hand side, the wrist side, will have higher fluid pressure? If I've pushed this way, will it be higher here at the elbow, Manina, or my wrist side?
Yeah, I would have thought so.
All right, it'll be higher here. So, what I'm getting
I thought that might have been a trick question for a moment.
No. Some people don't get it right. So when I lift my fingers off, the fluid under the skin will try and equal back to this lower pressure area here. And that's what happens when you dry brush massage. You move the fluid under the skin, but you don't necessarily get it in the pipes, because getting it in the pipes is what ends up pumping it away. So dry brush massaging will have a minimal effect. If you were to use the same part of your body but twist and just try and stimulate the opening and closing of those lymph collectors under the skin, you'll have a far greater effect. If you're going to spend time doing something on yourself, you want to get the best effect that you can get.
So I have people ask me about, it's been quite common recently, about puffiness under the eyes,
Yes.
especially if they're sleeping on one side and they might get puffiness under the eyes just on that one side, and it's that gravitational kind of effect. What can they do? Would the neck massage that you showed us earlier be sufficient enough? Could you perhaps give a couple more pointers for people that may experience this?
They could sleep sitting up. I'm just joking. Or what you've got is, when you look at the lymph pathways, you've got a circle of lymph which goes around your eye, pipes that go around your eye, and there's 3 general pathways that come to the bottom of your jaw here. Now, given that these pipes that come down here are 0.2 to 0.8 of a mil thick, if you're sleeping on that side, you can imagine we're probably shutting off the movement of that lymph all night, or whilst we're laying on it. So in answer to your question, yes, you would always start doing the neck first, because that's our drainage point, and then you could actually do some twisting of the cheeks, and you could even do some gentle twisting around the eye socket itself. Once we get the neck draining, there's lower pressure near the neck and higher pressure in this puffy cheek and under the eye, and the body naturally will try and equal, and so on, and it'll keep draining it away. So if we get it systemically revved up, it'll be draining from here, and it'll just keep trying to equal until everything's equal. So puffy eyes, the lymphatic system is the system that fixes puffy eyes.
Love it.
Yeah.
The system that's fixing itself, causing the problem and able to fix it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks, Tony, for joining us today. I think you've shared some really easy to do things that we can do right now at home to get our lymphatic system moving more. Yep. If anyone has any questions for Tony, then you can always either contact Tony directly. We'll be putting his links in the video, but also in the comment section. So when we post this video and it goes live, put it in the comment section if you've got any questions, DM us, and we'll get back to you right away with an answer directly from Tony.
Awesome. Listen, all the best. It's a vital system. It's really important that we learn a little bit more about it, all of us, for our own health and for the health of our patients, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, we're so glad that you're advocating for such an important system. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nina.
Bye.
Okay, bye.